Good morning.
Good morning. All sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Morning, Chairman.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. I'm here up in Flagstaff, ADOT office. So thank you.
Very good. Snowing up there?
Lot of wind out in the rural and remote area. Big wind. But
Yeah.
here it's fine. Got all these windbreakers, trees and whatnot.
Wow. Yeah, we're actually getting rain right now in Globe. A welcome sight.
Yeah, send some our way.
Amen to that, Steve. It's been raining here all morning. Not enough to do anything, but it sure makes living nice.
Does cleans the air a little bit, makes everything feel better, doesn't it?
It does.
Good to see you.
Good morning, Christy. This is Floyd again.
Good morning.
I saw that Christine Ward has logged in on the public side. If you could please elevate her as a panelist so she'll be ready to present. Thank you.
We are good to go. She is a panelist. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Christine.
Okay, can you see video? And we clearly have audio.
Yes, you are good to go.
Thanks so much. Is this Haley or Christy?
Christy,
Hi, Christy. Happy Friday.
happy Friday.
Okay, I'm going to go silent until the meeting starts.
Hi, Christy. Floyd again. I see
Good morning.
board member Jen Daniels has logged in as a participant. Could you please elevate her? Thank you.
Yes, she is now a panelist. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Appreciate all your work. I know it's not easy, that's for sure.
No worries. We're just glad to get you in the right place.
Morning, Floyd.
Good morning, Chairman. It's 9 a.m. and we're ready to go when you are.
Very good.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'll call this public hearing to order at 9 a.m. and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Floyd Rorick.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Floyd. Board Secretary, would you proceed with the roll call, please?
Yes, Chairman Stephen Stratton,
Present.
Vice Chairman Jesse Thompson,
Here.
Board Member Gary Knight,
Present.
Board Member Richard Searle,
Here.
Board Member Jen Daniels, Board Member Jackie Meck,
Here.
Board Member Ted Maxwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm really happy to see we have a full board. Finally, we've been on and off for a while. As things proceed to open up a little bit more in our state, I truly hope that we can convene as a board in person very soon. As Floyd and the director and I spoke, we will take this a month at a time. And as it opens up more, whether we come together as a board in Phoenix at the admin building or around the state, which is my preference, I'm going to ask all of you to make a concerted effort to make those meetings in person when that happens and when it's safe to do so. I'd like to welcome Board Member Maxwell. This is his first meeting. I had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. And I'd like to welcome him. And do you have any comments, Mr. Maxwell?
No, Steve, I appreciate you reaching out, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to serving on the board, and I'm just here to learn the process and procedures so we can move the state forward.
Thank you. We're glad to have you. And as all of you know, Mr. Maxwell represents Pima County in the PAG area. I was also had a call from Mr. Meck yesterday. And we had a very nice conversation and got to know each other a little bit better. So I appreciate that. That's really all I have right now for comments. Does any of the other board have any comments? I'd like to open it up to you. Okay, hearing none. A reminder for those members of the public, please keep your computer or phone muted during the meeting unless you're called on to speak during the call to the audience. I appreciate that and thank you. Floyd, would you proceed with the announcement of the Title VI Civil Rights Act, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans with Disability Act, the Arizona State Transportation Board and ADOT do not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, or disability. No person will be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefit of, or be otherwise subjected to discrimination under any Arizona State Transportation Board or ADOT program or activity. To assist in measuring the public's participation, we ask each individual to please complete an online self-identification survey, and the link to that survey is shown on the agenda. By completing this voluntary survey, ADOT will be able to determine who attends this public meeting and how the department can improve participation. The survey will also help ADOT fulfill federal reporting requirements. Thank you, and everyone stay safe.
Thank you, Floyd. Moving on to the call of the audience. Since this is a telephonic WebEx conference meeting, everyone will be muted when they call into the meeting. When your name is called to provide your comments, you will indicate your presence by virtually raising your hand using your phone keypad or through the WebEx application. The WebEx host will guide you through the unmuting and muting process, following the instructions included with the meeting agenda. This is our final public hearing for this year's 5-year plan. I'm glad to see there are a few more speakers this time than there have been. The board does appreciate your comments. However, we will hold you through to a 3-minute time limit. Floyd, would you call the first speaker, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker is Mayor Donald Hewish, Mayor Douglas, and he will be followed by Mr. Jaime Chamberlain, Chairman of the Greater Nogales-Santa Cruz County Port Authority. Just so those gentlemen are ready to go. Mayor Hewish, please follow the instructions and unmute your line.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Transportation Board. Is that clear enough for you? Hello?
Yes, you're being heard.
Oh, Well, my apologies. My name is Donald Hewish, and I'm the mayor of the city of Douglas. I appeared before you to ask for your support, including the connector road between the international border and State Route 80 for the new port of entry at Douglas. I respectfully would like to provide you with a brief update on the progress of this project. We remain in close contact with Governor Ducey's office and our congressional delegation as we work to secure the $325 million to pay for the construction of the new port of entry and modernization of the existing port at downtown Douglas. Our congressional delegation has confirmed that the current draft of the Jobs Act proposed by the President includes $3 billion to pay for ports of entry, and Douglas projects are within the top 10 nationally. There's great hope and expectation that this funding could come before the end of this year. So we have been working diligently to prepare for the anticipated federal investment, an investment that would be a huge economic development catalyst for Douglas, Cochise County, and the entire state of Arizona. In anticipation of this major economic impact in our area, the Environmental Protection Agency has completed an urban design study at Douglas to help us define the areas of opportunity and growth, including revitalizing our downtown, creating new development corridors, and leveraging the investment in the new port of entry. We recently hosted Board Member Richard Searle, Director Tim Lane of the Enforcement and Compliance Division, and other staff from ADOT for a site visit to the area where the new port of entry is to be built. It was an opportunity to see the 80 acres of land that the city has donated to the federal government for the construction of the new port of entry. Please note that the GSA, General Services Administration, has already conducted its due diligence of the land, including the level 1 environmental work, so that they can accept the land in donation. Cochise County has just completed a water and wastewater report for the areas where the new port is to be built and the anticipated commercial and industrial development that this project will bring. As we continue our work to coordinate with Mexico on the investment needed in the Mexican side, which I am happy to report that significant progress is being made. Last week, we conducted another meeting of the Douglas Port of Entry technical team that brings together our utilities, city and county, ADOT, the Arizona Commerce Authority, and our federal partners in this effort to plan all the necessary infrastructure improvements that will be needed to support this project. Suffice it to say that primary among all these needs is the road that will connect the port with State Route 80. Initial estimates are that the connector road will cost between $6 and $10 million, and we are aware that these funds for these new projects are limited, if not existent at all. But with the prospects of the federal funding for the ports, we must prepare this project so that it will become eligible for future funding opportunities. Thus, we would respectfully ask that ADOT conduct a design concept report, or DCR, along with environmental compliance to get this project ready for funding. According to ADOT, the DCR and the environmental work would cost between $500,000 and $800,000. The city is working with various stakeholders to help find funds that would help to defray the costs of the DCR and help ADOT advance this project. Because you deliberate that what needs to be included in the next 5-year plan.
Excuse me, Mayor Hewish, your time is exceeded. Could you please?
Excellent.
Could you please wrap up your comments?
Just thank you very much, board members, and we'd like to invite you down whenever you're available to come see the project and exciting things happen down there, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Floyd, would you call the next speaker, please?
The next speaker is Jaime Chamberlain, President of the Greater Santa Cruz County Port Authority, and after him will be Vice Mayor Africa Luna Carrasco.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chairman Stratton and members of the board, thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. My name is Jaime Chamberlain, and I am here as chairman of the Greater Nogales Santa Cruz County Port Authority. Our board of directors includes the City of Nogales, Santa Cruz County, the Fresh Produce Association of the Americas, Index of Sonora, Nogales Custom House Brokers Association, Nogales Community Development Foundation, the Nogales Economic Development Foundation, and the Santa Cruz County Mining Cluster. I'd like to start off with thanking the board and Director Halakowski and the entire ADOT team for the tremendous progress that's being made on the modernization of State Route 189. I'm happy to report that the project continues to move ahead of schedule and under budget. Just this week, ADOT announced the opening of the roundabout at Target Range Road, and construction crews are moving quickly on the completion of the flyover ramps at I-19. This could not have been possible without all of your support. Once this is completed, this project will be a game changer in the improving of the safety for the traveling public and the strengthening of Arizona's competitiveness as a key trade and tourism corridor into North America. We look forward to hosting the board and the ADOT team in Nogales when the project is completed, hopefully in September. I should note that the modernization project is already having an economic impact on our community. The cross-border travel restrictions that have been in place since March of 2020 have had a severe impact on our border retail, tourism, and local merchants. Our sales tax revenues depend on the Mexican visitors who come to spend their money on our side of the border. Had it not been for the SR 189 project that started just days before the shutdown of our state due to COVID, our local economy and our sales tax revenues would have been decimated. The sales tax impact on the project has made up for those losses to the county and the city, where other sources of sales tax revenues were not available. And for that, we're grateful. As we've stated before, the modernization of the State Route 189 is a critical component of the broader transportation and logistics system in Nogales. In my previous appearances before you, I'm here, as in my previous appearances, I'm here to ask you to include the improvements of I-19 interchanges at Ruby Road and Rio Rico Drive, along with the frontage roads between these two critical interchanges into this 5-year plan. I did want to inform you that we did make an appropriations request through our congressional delegations for $35 million to pay for the construction of the improvements to the federal government, from the federal government. This portion of I-19 serves as the access points to and from many warehouses that are logistics hubs for billions of dollars of fresh produce in the Rio Rico area. Backups on northbound truck traffic exiting I-19 onto Ruby Road are essentially a daily occurrence which are aggravated during the peak periods of produce seasons when backups exceed dozens of trucks onto I-19. And that's happening right now as we speak. These are usually trucks coming from Mexico to drop off their loads at warehouses in Rio Rico, but those same trucks also return to Mexico. We also see the backups from southbound traffic exiting onto Ruby Road. These are typically trucks that come in from all over the United States into Nogales to pick up their products for destinations all over North America. When you consider that the residential traffic also relies on Ruby Road to access I-19, it creates a dangerous safety situation with the intermingling of high volumes of both commercial and non-commercial traffic. Even with the pandemic, truck traffic in Nogales has continued to grow. In 2020, over 350,000 trucks crossed northbound at the Mariposa Port of Entry. It's an increase of almost 3,000 trucks from the year previous. And the first quarter of 2021 confirms that this upward trend of truck traffic will continue. While this is a great news for the growth, yes, I will wrap up.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please wrap up.
We will continue to work with. Rod Lane and our district engineer for the optimal design to maximize the gains in safety, efficiency, and throughput. It is coordinated through dialogue that includes the industry, developers, and the county. As we did with SR 189, we stand ready to work together to move the Ruby Road and Rio Rico interchange projects forward and address the long-term transportation needs of our region. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Jaime. Just as a reminder to the rest of the speakers, please hold your comments to 3 minutes. I know they're important. We need to hear them, but please give us a 3-minute summary if you would. Thank you. Floyd, would you call the next speaker, please?
Next speaker is Vice Mayor Africa Luna Carrasco, followed by Mr. James Howie. Vice Mayor, please unmute your line.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Africa Luna Carrasco, and I'm the Vice Mayor for the City of San Luis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I am here to ask for your assistance addressing one of the most critical transportation issues impacting our community, and the inclusion of the modernization of Cesar Chavez Boulevard into the 5-year transportation plan. Cesar Chavez Boulevard is our major and single east to west connector and the only connector between San Luis 1 and San Luis 2 ports of entry. Perhaps we are the fastest growing community in rural Arizona. According to the latest census, our population is over 36,000, and even the governor has referred to our city as a boomtown Arizona. But that does not reveal the entire story about our international community. In 2020, 5.3 million people and 2.2 million cars crossed the border into our community. Those numbers actually reflect a decrease of 30.5% when compared to 2019 due to the border restrictions placed since March of 2020. We project that once those restrictions are lifted, 21,000 people and 7,800 cars will cross into our community each and every single day of the year. Once that traffic reaches this side of the border, travelers only have two options. One is to go north to US 95, or the second option is to go east to SR 195. The only choice in getting to SR 195 is through Cesar Chavez Boulevard. This boulevard is mostly a single lane road in each direction. It is dangerous for pedestrians because there are no sidewalks and because congestion is extremely severe during peak hours. It is also the only main access point to many key areas within our city. With that being said, Cesar Chavez Boulevard needs to be improved to 2 lanes in each direction with appropriate turning lanes, sidewalks, and lighting to ensure the safety of traveling public. The current estimated cost for this project is $33 million. The city has already spent a considerable amount of time and resources in advancing this project. We continue working closely with members of the ADOT team and continue trying to acquire the right-of-way despite the bureaucratic process. But the situation is dire and we need your assistance in advancing this project. Including it into the 5-year transportation plan will be a critical aspect of the advancement of the project. I understand that resources are limited, but the situation on Cesar Chavez Boulevard requires immediate attention. Thank you for your consideration, and I ask that you keep this project in mind as you work through the 5-year transportation plan that you are about to approve. Again, thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Floyd, next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Mr. James Howie, followed by Ms. Melinda Gassner.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm here to talk about extending SR 24 from Ironwood to Florence Junction, or between Renaissance Fair and there. One of the things I chose to retire 5 years ago and move to Arizona was because Arizona ADOT has been so proactive on future growth throughout the region of the valley. And so that's why I chose. I lived up in Seattle area and we were stuck in gridlock for the last 25 to 30 years. With that is, we currently have a situation where when US 60 is has a wreck and closed, and there's been 12 instances in the last 5 years I've lived here, there is no detour, or the detour is to go down Ellsworth to Hunt Highway to Arizona Farms, up SR 2079, up back to Gold Canyon. We've had 2 of these instances in the last 2 weeks where it's closed and people had to take this route. It takes about 60 minutes to do that. Also, they are planning, DR Horton's planning to grow south of Apache Junction And to handle this future growth, we would need SR 24 extended from Ironwood all the way out to there. Also, we do have more and more truck traffic coming from the mines in Superior and Kearney that are impacting US 60. You know, by extending this, now's the time to plan, get the land, and build the extension from SR 24 Ironwood to the US 60. With that, appreciate you guys letting me talk. And if you got any questions, I have no further comments.
Thank you for your comments. Floyd, next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Ms. Melinda Gantner, followed by Ms. Julie Brooks. Ms. Gantner, please unmute your line.
Hi, my name is Melinda Gantner. I live in Williams, Arizona, and I am requesting to be included in the 5-year plan an expansion on Highway 64 from the I-40 to the Grand Canyon. As you all know, this is one of our major tourist attractions here in the state of Arizona, and it is currently a 2-lane road with only 2 real passing lanes, one near the city of Williams and one near the city of Tucson. So therefore, we have the tourists speeding up and down the road, passing illegally, causing major accidents, most or several of them resulting in fatalities. And the road really does need to be expanded to 2 lanes on both sides. As the pandemic lifts and more traffic starts getting, the roads are just going to get worse. And it is bad not only for the tourists that are out here, but also for the residents that live out here, because when there's an accident, then there is no bypass around them. So I would like to request that that road be extended to 2 lanes from the I-40 all the way up to the Grand Canyon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Floyd, the next speaker.
Next speaker is Ms. Julia Brooks, followed by Mr. Kealan Begay. Ms. Brooks, please unmute your line.
Floyd, I'm not seeing her hand raised or on our list.
Thank you, Christy. Mr. Chairman, let's move on. If she logs in before we're done with call to the audience, we can come back. Mr. Kealan Begay, please raise your hand and unmute your line. Christy, is Mr. Begay on?
I'm not seeing Mr. Begay either. There is a hand raised. I can unmute that line. I believe it's a previous person, though. Call-in user, your line is unmuted.
Is there somebody on the line, please?
Hello, this is Delegate Kealan Begay Jr.
Go ahead.
Begay, it's your time. Go ahead and make your 3-minute comment, please.
Hello, Kealan Begay Jr.
Yes, sir, Mr. Begay, we can hear you. Please make your comment.
I'm sorry. I've been before the Arizona Department of Transportation Board numerous times. Good morning again, everyone. Chair, committee members. Continue to advocate for Highway 191 in the northeastern part of the state of Arizona on the Navajo Nation. Road improvement. I appreciate the current improvement construction going on Highway 191 between Mini Farms and Chinle, Arizona. But I believe a good, more updated improvement will be needed, and I appreciate the consideration to include funding in the 5-year plan for Highway 191, specifically also for Mini Farms, zip code 86538. That's one area that we continue to advocate on this particular road. So again, I'll continue to request for this particular road improvement on a monthly basis, and I appreciate your consideration. And thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Ms. Laura Sickelsteel, followed by Vice Mayor Brady Harris. Ms. Sickelsteel, please raise your hand so you can unmute. Christy, is Ms. Sickelsteel on the line?
I do not see Ms. Sickelsteel on the line. We do have 2 call-in users. I believe they're the 2 previous speakers. So just a reminder to please lower your hand once you've done providing your comment. I'm going to go ahead and unmute those lines just to ensure. Okay, I am not seeing Ms. Sickelsteel on the line.
Vice Mayor Brady Harris. Mr. Harris, if you're there, please raise your hand so you can be unmuted.
You are unmuted at this time.
Thank you very much. So my name is Brady Harris. I'm the Vice Mayor for the town of Tucson. And though we would much rather see you in person this morning, we completely understand given the current circumstances and pray that we'll be moving to a new normal here in the future. And I want to thank Director Halakowski and his staff, in particular, Audra Merrick is our district engineer, and she's done a fabulous job working with us in the community. My comments today are just in regards to Highway 64, and to reiterate from earlier, really the need for expansion and improvement of Highway 64. As you all know, we're the Grand Canyon State. This is the highway that ends up moving up to the Grand Canyon National Park, and there are quite a few improvements necessary between the elk crossings that result in over 300 accidents a year. Then you have the vehicular accidents, of course, over 300 of those a year. It makes for a tense situation when trying to travel across there. Of course, I'm a resident of Tucson, so in order to get some basic goods of services, groceries and that type of stuff, I have to travel to Williams or Flagstaff. And that daily drive sometimes that I have to do, it's become quite dangerous over the years as we've seen an increase in visitation. In a given year, given the current visitation, we'll see over 3 million cars roll around that highway. Of course, we're only counting cars, not to mention the buses and the campers, which we've seen an increase in it as well. You all should receive a presentation that's being circulated around. On this initiative, we have support from the City of Williams, the Tucson Fire District, the Tucson Sanitary District, the Grand Canyon National Park Service, and the GAMA, the Great Arizona Mayors Association. So we implore you to take a look at those, and as we analyze the P2P list, that they receive a greater significance due to the economic impact and the safety concerns. And overall, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman, the next speaker is Mr. John Cordes. Mr. Cordes, if you're on the phone, please raise your hand so you can be unmuted.
I'm not seeing his hand raised.
Mr. Cordes sent his in right after the call to the audience started, so I know you hadn't had a chance to read out with him to prep him. Is there a way to try to see if phone number 928-920-7390 is calling number? That might be the number he's using.
I can see if I can find it. One moment, please.
Because I probably shouldn't have broadcast that to everybody. He's probably going to get a bunch of calls now. Nobody please harass Mr. Cordes. He's a really nice guy.
I do see a number starting with 928-581 or 928-920.
He is the 920. That is the number he said he will be using.
Okay, great. I'm going to unmute that line at this time.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Arizona State Transportation Board. Thank you for the opportunity. I am the former executive director of the Yuma County Chamber of Commerce. I'm retired now up in Dewey, Arizona, but I'm speaking on behalf of the folks in southwestern Arizona with the widening of Highway 95. Currently, it's on the books as the US 95 Corridor Widening and Reconstruction Project. Thanks to the efforts of Representative Dunn, $27 million got us from Highway 9E to a Rifle Range Road, about a third of the way to Yuma Proving Ground. From October to April, this is the busiest two-lane road in the state. You've got agriculture in full swing. Agriculture in southwestern Arizona is almost a $4 billion a year business, but you've got thousands of people driving from Yuma to YPG. World-class testing is going on at Yuma Proving Ground, and you also have winter visitors at the same time. I'm asking, as part of the 5-year plan, we continue funding and focusing on this stretch of road. We've had multiple fatalities already this year. It's an important project, not only for commerce in southwestern Arizona, but for national security and testing going on at YPG. So again, we're part of the way there. It just makes sense to continue the project to Aberdeen Road past the YPG entrance. It's for security, it's for safety, it's for all of southwestern Arizona, and part of the Canamex promise of decades ago to have a thoroughfare from San Luis to I-10 towards the rest of the U.S. So please keep it on the 5-year plan. Let's get this thing done all the way to Aberdeen Road, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Floyd, are there any more speakers?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Brooks has called back in. She was having a phone issue. I would like to ask if she is here to raise her hand and have her time to speak. Ms. Julia Brooks, please raise your hand so we can unmute you.
I am not seeing a hand raised at this time, Floyd.
Okay, I thought she said that she had called back in, was able to get back in. I apologize for that. And I just want, Mr. Chairman, one more time, I want to see if Laura Sicklesteel was able to call in. Ms. Sicklesteel, please raise your hand on the device you're using so you can be unmuted.
Chairman Stratton?
Yes.
This is Richard Searle. When at the end of this call to public, if I'd like to make a comment, please.
Very well.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't see either Ms. Sicklesteel or Ms. Brooks. They may have had an issue still with trying to call in and log into the meeting. I apologize for that. if you want to go ahead and move on to Board Member Searle, I think that's appropriate. Oh, wait a minute. Did somebody just call in, Christy?
Yes, we just had a hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute their line. You are unmuted.
Chairman Stratton and board, this is Julia Brooks from the Wickenburg Chamber. I apologize for our phone systems today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for all the many years that you have worked with the Wickenburg Chamber of Commerce. I am retiring after 40 years, 33 in Wickenburg on July 31st. I wanted to acknowledge all of the district engineers I've worked with. I think there's 6 of them. Some of them, of course, you know, Dick Wright, Tom Foster, of course, Dallas, and presently Alvin. I sincerely appreciate them looking out for our area of Arizona and some deadly highways, as you know, especially 93. We hope that you will keep Highway 93 online for the completion of the GAP project and additional monies in the 5-year plan to go even further. We know that Highway 74 is also going to be a major input to Highway 60, and hopefully that will also be part of your discussion soon. We look forward to hosting you again in November, the board, and I know that the alumni from the board again likes to participate here with the Chamber in the town of Wickenburg and Rancho de los Caballeros. So once again, I'm grateful for your assistance. We still have Andy Roth, our assistant district engineer who participates in our monthly chamber transportation committees, works very well with the town of Wickenburg, and has been our liaison for 21 years. So again, thank you. We look forward to working with you. I'll continue to advocate for Arizona highways and our area here. And again, many thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, and best wishes for your retirement. Any other speakers, Floyd? Floyd?
Mr. Chairman, that is it. It looks like Ms. Laura Sickelsteel was not able to call into the meeting, so that is all the speakers we have.
Very well. If she happens to get in later, please remind me, and if possible, we may go back and let her speak. Mr. Searle, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Steve. And I don't know how this works in the protocol, but Randy Heise, the executive director of SEGO, asked me to read a letter into the comments, and I think we all received the letter. So just for the sake of time, I would ask that that letter be added to the minutes of this public hearing. Floyd, is that acceptable?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Searle, yes, it is. And since all the members have it, we will make it part of the meeting so the public will see it. His letter was also included in the public comment received as part of the 5-year program. So his comments are documented.
All right, very good. And that's the main thing. And there again, with call the public, I know we're not supposed to comment on individuals that call in, but Mayor Hewish's comments on the DCR, I think he had his numbers wrong. It's my understanding a DCR would cost anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000, not the number that he used. So that's all my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Searle. I'd like to say, well, all the requests that we receive are very valid and needed. We're doing the best we can with the money we have. The board members all know what our constraints are, as well as the staff. And I ask that the public bear with us and support us as we go through these projects and the allocation of money. And hopefully at some point in time, we will have more money to work with and can fill more requests. Thank you. We'll now move on to Greg Byers to provide an overview of the tentative FY 2022-2026 5-year transportation facilities construction program. This is for information and discussion only. Greg?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, board members. Before I start on the presentation, I do want to let you know where we're at as far as our public comments go. To date, we have received comments from over 490 individuals. That compares to last year at about this time, or actually 2019, where we had about 77 comments. So substantially higher than what we'd seen. However, there is one project that we've received several comments on. We've received over 324 comments on the I-10 at Jackrabbit Trail interchange. We've also received comments on the widening of I-10 between Phoenix and Casa Grande, as well as the widening of I-10 in the West Valley of Maricopa County. There's been comments on I-10 Pima County, near and south of Tucson, as well as the I-17 Anthem Cordes Junction projects. Also had comments on US 93 to Kingman, the SR 260 widening at Lion Springs, advancing the I-11 corridor, advancing the north-south corridor, the need for equity in programs statewide, as well as repaving of various highways. So we've received several of these comments, and they'll keep on coming in. We'll go into a little more detail on those during our study session, but I just want to let you know where we're at with comments at this point in time. So as far as the program that we have, or the presentation that we have today, I'm going to go through the background, an overview of our asset conditions. I'm going to skip the P2P process. We're going to go through the tentative 5-year highway delivery program, as well as the MAG and PAG tentative programs, the airport program, and then where we're at in the process and the next steps that we have. So as far as the background goes, the tentative 5-year program is presented to the State Transportation Board for approval, as well as going through a public comment period. The planned public comments have been going on over the last couple months. This is the last public hearing. On June 3rd, we'll have the study session to address and discuss the comments, as well as any changes that are we're looking at having in the tentative program going into the final program. The projected approval of the 5-year program is scheduled for the board meeting on June 18th. On July 1, the 2021, we go to the 2022 program, start of the fiscal year. And of course, our program must be constrained on a yearly basis. So next slide. So as an overview of our asset conditions, right now, our system is valued at $23.5 billion. That's considerable, but however, if we were to replace the existing system, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300 billion. So this is a considerable asset. As we go through the different conditions, we have 3 different categories in which we rate bridges and pavements. It's good, fair, and poor. Bridges that are in good condition have primary structural components, have no problems or only very minor deterioration. If it's in fair condition, it has primary structural components are sound but have some concrete deterioration or erosion around piers or abutments caused by flowing water. If it's in poor condition, it has advanced concrete deterioration, scours, seriously affected primary structural components. A poor condition bridge is not unsafe. If it's an unsafe bridge, it is closed. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of where we're at today with the conditions of our bridges, as well as where we've been over the past 10 years. You can see we've had a decline in our good condition bridges from 2010, where it was at 78%, down to 59% in 2019. So our 2020 conditions are still we're still putting those together. We should have those before the study session, we should have all of those, that information to present to the board. Next slide. For pavement ratings, again, we do the good, fair, and poor. For pavements, if it's in good condition, it's a smooth road surface with little cracking, no ruts and potholes. If it's in fair condition, it's moderate amounts of cracking that lead to increased roughness to the road surface, as well as shallow ruts in the wheel paths. If it's in poor condition, we have numerous cracks, rough road surface, ruts in the wheel path, potholes, and the disintegration of the road surface itself. Next slide. So we break our road conditions into 3 different components. The first component we have is interstate. And again, you can see a decline that we've had over the past 10 years, going from 72% in good condition in 2010 down to 48% in 2019. One big thing to look at here with our interstates is we're at 1% poor condition. We have to maintain less than 5%. Once we hit that 5%, there's Federal Highway has us going into some corrective action. So we're in good shape looking at the 1%, but that decline of the good condition and the increase in the fair condition is something that is not good. But it's happened due to the funding that we have trying to maintain the roadways. Next slide, please. So the next one is our non-interstate national highway system roadways. Here you'll see that the pavements, again, that decline has occurred through the past 10 years, 68.1% in good condition in 2010 compared to 32.1% in 2019. Here we also have 3% that is in poor condition. Next slide. So the non-national highway system pavements, these are basically our low volume roadways. You can see again that decrease has occurred in the good condition. In 2010, we had 44.3% in good condition. 2019, we're down to 18.8%. Here we're looking at 6% that's in the poor condition. So again, that decline has progressed over the last 10 years. Next slide. So as we go on, we're going to start looking at 3 different investment categories. We've got preservation, modernization, and expansion. The preservation is just that, it's the investment to keep pavements smooth and maintain bridges. Modernization is our non-capacity investments to improve safety and operations. And then expansion is just that, it's to expand the capacity of highway systems, new roads, added lanes, new interchanges, and so forth. Next slide. So in order to kind of take a look at where we're at with our system itself, we took and ran a scenario to see what it's going to take to maintain current conditions. So you just saw what the conditions are. So in order to just maintain those current conditions, the dollar values that we would need, we projected out for a 5-year period. This started in 2020, it goes through 2025. And what you see is, you know, in 2020, we need about 219 million. 2021, it expands up to 354 million. 22, it's at 454 million. 2023, it decreases down to 333 million. 24, 193, and then in 25, 201. One of the reasons why it declines off in those last 3 years is we have to reverse the curve that you saw, that decline curve in all of our pavements and bridges. So it's an exorbitant amount of money to try and just stop that decline, and then it's preservation at that point in time to maintain. But as you also see, it starts to increase again in 2025, and it becomes kind of a cyclical event as we go through time. So as just a comparison here, if we were to bring all of our roadways up to good condition, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.2 billion. Now that's for pavements only. So we just did a study on the bridges, and on the bridges themselves, in order to bring those into good condition, that's an additional $3.2 billion to bring all of our bridges into good condition. Next slide. So this is a look at our 5-year program itself. Each one of the columns that you see represents a year in the 5-year program. We start in 2022, go through 2026. What you see in blue is our expansion. The orange color you see is our planning dollars. In the purple is the statewide project development. In the red is our statewide modernization. And in the green is our preservation. So for 2022, you see that we've got about a little over $159 million in expansion. We've also really bumped up our preservation to $381 million. The majority of the increase that we've seen in this is due to the COVID relief fund dollars that we've seen coming into the state, where we have taken and pushed those dollars into preservation to take and try and bring some of that fair condition pavement up into good condition. So there was $117 million that was approved by the board over the last couple months to be able to bring that in. And those construction dollars fall into the 2022 year span that we're looking at. The $159 million that we have in expansion, we'll kind of go through that here in a little bit, but it covers some projects that we've already had, as well as some projects that we're needing to get done. And a lot of that money, again, also came through the CARES Act or through the CRISA Act to try and get some of those monies spent. As we go through the rest of the years, one of the things that you see is that black horizontal line. That's our target value that we're utilizing for preservation. Again, that's pretty much just to maintain existing systems. If we could hit 320 million every year, that would pretty much stabilize what we're looking at in that decline. But that's about all it does. It does not reverse the curve. It just stabilizes that line. So you'll also see a decrease in our expansion through 2023 and 24. And then there is no expansion in 2025 and 2026. That's by design. We have a long-range transportation plan that shows that we need to concentrate on our preservation and not on expansion. And so we're following through utilizing those recommendations from the long-range transportation plan. Again, this is for Greater Arizona that we're talking about here. This does not include our MAG and PAG regions. So next slide. So again, kind of going back to the pavement preservation and trying to put this in a different context. Looking at the lane miles that we have across the state and how the money is spent. If you take a look at the upper chart on the right-hand side there, you'll see that the different categories that we have, the interstate, the non-interstate, and the non-national highway system, and where those pavement conditions exist. It also gives you the lane miles that we have across the state. So we have a total of 22,431 lane miles that go across the state. Those are the lane miles that we're having to maintain on a regular basis. So as we go through the preservation, if you look at the lower chart, you'll see that like in 2021, we had 378 lane miles in our preservation system. This is again for Greater Arizona. In 22, 320 lane miles. Both of these are less than 2% of our entire system. In 23, we're looking at 532 lane miles. Again, that's at 2.37%. Now in the current program, or in the tentative program that we're looking at, I just said we had an increase in money that came in from COVID. That's going into our 22. The 320 lane miles that's in this does not reflect that we're actually able to push another 200 lane miles out, utilizing the COVID relief funding that came through. So that's going to increase. That's going to help us out some. But again, this is a very low percentage. We need at least 5% per year to maintain the existing roadway conditions at their existing levels. So our funding is well below what we need to just preserve the system. So next slide. This gives you an idea of where we're at in our overall program. This does include MAG and PAG as far as our budget that we're looking at. We're looking at 44% expansion in the program, about 10% in modernization, and 46% in preservation. That compares fairly closely to what we had in the 2021-2025 program, where those percentages are within 1 or 2%. Next slide. As we go into just the greater Arizona area, the budget that we're looking at in the tentative program, it's got 24% expansion, 12% modernization, and 64% in preservation. Again, so you see that major increase that we've got in preservation within the greater Arizona area. Next slide. So as we go year by year, this gives you an idea. You've already seen the vertical column, but this kind of gives you, portrays what we're doing with that 158 or $159.5 million in expansion. So we have a project on State Route 69. This is $10 million for the Prescott Lakes Parkway. We also have a project on US 93, which is the Tegner Street Wickenburg Ranch Way project. It's at $41 million. And then we've got the I-17 project running from Anthem Way to Cordes Junction at $108.6 million. Next slide. In 2023, we have a total of $84 million that we're looking at in expansion. That covers 2 projects. One of them is the West Kingman TI. We're looking at just purchasing the right-of-way at $1 million, as well as the I-10 Gila River Bridge project at $83 million. Next slide. In 2024, we've got a total of $70 million that we're looking at in expansion. That is all on a single project that we're looking at, and that is the West Kingman TI itself. This is set at that $70 million. Next slide. In 2025, as you'd seen before, we do not have any expansion. However, we do have some typical preservation projects that we're looking at. One of them is the Santa Maria Bridge at $7 million. This is on State Route 96, as well as the San Pedro River Bridge on State Route 82 at $7 million. Next slide. In 2026, again, no expansion projects. In the 5th year of the program, we generally don't program out projects, but you do see that we've got an extended amount of preservation at $416 million in the program in 2026, and no expansion. Next slide. So as we get out into our extended years of the program, which is 2027 through 2031, again, we're following the recommendations of our long-range transportation plan and utilizing the basically the same funding that we have for the 5th year of the program extending through. And so you'll see this carries through consistently all the way through at that $416 million for expansion, as well as $98.5 million for modernization. Next slide. For the MAG region, this is their program. Again, MAG does their own programming. ADOT does take and make sure that conformity is met, as well as compliance with federal highway requirements. But MAG does do their own programming. This gives you an idea of what they're looking at. The majority of all these projects are either on the, oops, if we can go back, the majority of these projects are either on the freeway system in the valley or the major arterials. You see several projects on I-10, I-17, as well as SR 101, SR 202. We've got some projects on US 60, SR 303, project on 85 and so forth. This is the latest information that MAG has. They are working on their rebalancing, and as they go forth and get the latest information approved through their regional council, we will update this. So as that information becomes available. Next slide. So this is a PAG region, and again, PAG does their own programming. We do the oversight and compliance. But here they've got multiple projects that they're looking at. They have projects on I-10, I-19, SR-77, and they also have a section on the SR-210, I-10 that they're looking at. So they have multiple projects scattered out throughout the Tucson and Pima region. Next slide. So the next section we have is the Airport Improvement Program. There has been one change that was confirmed earlier this week. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has taken and announced that all of their grants will be 100%. Our federal, state, local program is based on providing half of the match from regional airports. And so consequently, since it's a 100% match, there's no need for that $5 million. So we'll be moving that $5 million into our state local program and distributing a little bit further down the list of priorities that we have for that state local program. So that'll go from 10 million to 15 million. The airport pavement preservation system is set at $8 million. Grand Canyon Airport at $4 million. The state planning services are at $1 million, which covers all of our mandated studies. And so the total for the capital improvement program is set at $28 million for our airports across the state, which includes 67 airports altogether. Next slide. So the next steps in the process that we have, again, we've already done the hearings in March and April. This is the May hearing. In June, we have the study session coming up on the 3rd. And then the final program will go through the State Transportation Board for approval. That will be at the June board meeting is what we're projecting. So next slide. And with that, if there's any questions, I stand ready for those.
Greg, I have a couple of things. You've mentioned the long-range plan 2 or 3 times in your presentation. And I think there's only 3 of us left on the board at this point that passed that long-range plan. At the time it came to us, we had a short time frame to get it passed, if I recall correctly. And we had concerns about not being any expansion in rural Arizona. We were given the assurance that the board had the authority to override that and change that at any given time. Is there a update or a new long-range plan? Is it due to be updated soon?
Mr. Chairman, board members, yes, it is. In fact, we're currently advertising for that long-range transportation plan for the update. That update occurs every 5 years. And so we're planning on getting that done. We want to try and get that done early so that we've got a little bit of time to go through. There's a fairly extensive comment period that goes with that long-range transportation plan, and we will be utilizing that entire time for those comments. So that's coming up. You're going to start seeing more of that as we get a consultant on board and start going through that. So within the next year, I'll start bringing our updates in the MPD update for the long-range transportation plan.
My request then would be that we receive that plan in time to be able to receive comments from the cities, towns, counties, and citizens that we represent, and make sure that we are representing our citizens well in what we put into a plan.
Understood. And we can certainly build that into our timeline as we go forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any questions from the board members for Greg?
Chairman Stratton?
Yes, go ahead.
I've got a question for Greg. I understand the 5-year plan is fiscally constrained as to the income that we have. And I'm assuming that what you're working on is off of the income projections that we came in with last spring when COVID first hit. With the increase in funding in HERP that we've seen this last year, when are we going to be looking at different numbers as to what we can possibly do in the 5-year plan?
So, Mr. Chairman, Board Member Ciro, so the numbers that we're working on are actually the latest numbers that Christine and FMS has put together. They revised those numbers back about 3 months ago. So we're working on their latest projections as well as their latest data. So it's not post-COVID. Obviously, COVID's still going on, but they are the latest projections that FMS has in hand.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, Greg?
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Greg, regarding the 2022-26 public hearing, the comments that have been made by the public, are there any major changes coming out of resulting from the 5-year plan that comments are made on it?
So, Board Member Thompson, Mr. Chairman, several of the comments that we have received are addressed in the 5-year program. There's, as a matter of fact, there's very few that are not being addressed at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Greg. That's all I have, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Board Member.
Yes, this is Board Member Knight. Greg, I know there have been, we're getting real close to the legislature adjourning, and there are some transportation projects that have been approved, or it look like they're in the budget right now if they stay there. Can you explain how they'll be addressed once that's, and they would be then included in the 5-year plan?
So, Board Member Knight, Mr. Chairman, as they complete the budget process and the budget is approved, at that point in time, we will have to revise our 5-year program to include any projects that the legislature may have appropriated towards any of the routes that we have. We are expecting that to occur, so we're bracing for it and getting ready for it. It's going to be a major time crunch for us, but yes, we will take and try and get everything put together that we possibly can, get it into the 5-year program so that prior to the board approving this, hopefully, if we can get a budget in time, we can have all of that addressed. If it occurs afterwards, we will certainly take and bring that through a revision through our PPAC process so that you'll see all of those coming through.
Thank you, Greg. Also, in one of my meetings last week with SEMPO, was mentioned by Supervisor, Yavapai Supervisor Brown, that he's concerned that the legislature are short-circuiting the priority list, but And I tried to convey to him that the best way to address that is with the legislature, not with the Transportation Board or with ADOT. Do you concur?
Board Member Knight, Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely right. And actually, Dallas has been working feverishly with the legislature to make sure that if there are projects out there, they're hitting our priority list. We have given them all the information that we can coming out of our P2P process so that they know where ADOT's priorities lie. In a lot of cases, that's been very fruitful. But again, once we have to wait till the budget comes through to see what projects are actually approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions for Greg?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Which one?
Mr. Mack, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Greg, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the long-range plan. What's the time frame of that? Maybe I missed that, but what is the time frame for that long range? And I'll mute.
So, Board Member Mack, Chairman, the long-range transportation plan is a 20-year plan that we take and project out. Again, we update that on a 5-year basis. So our 5th year will be coming up in 23. I believe it's 23. So that's why we're working. We're starting to work on that right now, making sure that we get it put together as well as go through all the comment periods on a timely basis so that we can hit our deadline on trying to make that update correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Board Member Daniels, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Stratton, and thank you for Board Member Knight for bringing up the legislative issue. It's something that I've thought about often over the last little while as we've been having transportation discussions all over the state, and I do appreciate Greg and Steve and Director Halakowski for all the work that they are doing to provide feverishly information to our legislators. I would like to see us have an improved process, though, moving forward. I felt like this was a timely ability to contribute there, and that would be that we in the off cycle of after this budget is passed and after the legislature signed dies, I would love to see us as board members meet with the legislators within our district along with the district engineer and discuss the priorities and why they are the method to our madness, if you will, as we have developed these priorities. I have had some robust discussions, heated at times with some of our legislators about inserting into priority things that, frankly, we've already looked at and have determined do not fall into that top tier category. It does not take away their authority at all for them to be able to contribute in that way, but I would love to see us have a more collaborative process with the legislature so that they, at least have the framework of information for why ADOT does what they do, and then direct dialogue with us as board members to understand all the things that we're weighing as we move forward with this. So I just thought that was timely given Board Member Knight's comments, and would love to work on a collaborative process with our legislature after session is over this year.
Thank you, Board Member Daniels. I appreciate that. Are there any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Board Member Maxwell.
Go ahead, Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, Mr. Chair and the rest of the board, I would like to first reiterate, I think Board Member Daniels is exactly right. I think it's important that the board does engage with the legislature on that. And I guess I have a follow-up question for Greg as well. So with the legislature potentially passing projects that are going to then be inserted in the 5-year, has the coordination with all of those legislators ensured that the funding that they're going to appropriate is going to cover the entire expense of the projects, or will it have a ripple effect throughout the remainder of the 5-year project, 5-year plan?
So, Board Member Maxwell and Chairman, we have tried to give as much information as we possibly can to the legislature on projects. as well as we've done numerous estimates for different projects. Again, Dallas has worked timelessly to get all of this information out to them. We will have to wait and see exactly what comes through on the budget for projects as they come through, and how the final writing is done for each of the projects that defines the scope and limits. Once that is done and we have a chance to take a look at that, we can define exactly, make sure that either there is enough funding, or if there isn't, what we can do to make it work.
Thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the 2022-2026 tentative 5-year transportation facilities construction program?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Knight, correct?
No, I second
Mr.
it.
Chairman, I think the motion was by Board Member Searle and the second was by Mr. Knight.
Very good. Is there any discussion? Would you make the roll call? Do we need a roll call or just an aye on this one, Floyd?
Just an aye, sir. We vote just an aye.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. I'll now call the board meeting to order. And
Mr. Chair.
move on to item 1, the director's report.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I was remiss in my opening comments when you gave me the opportunity to speak on the floor, but I wanted to ensure that the efforts of Mike Hammond and his 6+ years on the transportation board were recognized. Mike's been a great representative for Pima County. He's a leader in the region, that he's done the yeoman's work up here working with the rest of the board on the ATSB, and I just like to make sure that I get into the record that the residents of Pima County greatly appreciated his efforts, and I hope I can carry the water as well as he has over the last 6 years. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Board Member Maxwell. We indeed did thank Mike many times and made sure that it was in the record of his contributions to the state of Arizona and Pima County. But thank you for inserting that again. Most appropriate. Okay, we'll move on to item 1, the director's report. This is for information and discussion only. Floyd, is John, are you here? Or Floyd, you going to do this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Floyd. The director had a conflict this morning. He does send his regrets. He did not have any last minute items, but he does want to remind board members, if you have issues you want him to discuss, please work through me or send to him, and we will get that scheduled for the future. Although he does have Katie Proctor on the line, he does want her to provide a legislative update. So Ms. Proctor, if you're available, please provide an update.
Sure. Good morning, members. Today is the 131st day of the legislative session, and as of this morning, 370 bills have been signed into law by the governor. There's still probably about 25 out there, and as you heard earlier, the focus right now is clearly on the budget negotiations. They're continuing to move forward in a very positive way, and there does appear to be some support for a variety of transportation issues, including many that I've previously discussed with you in terms of individual bills. There may also be some money set aside for pavement preservation, broadband, and without a final budget at this point, it's really hard to tell you what that's going to look like. It's going to be a fluid process until they finish, and it's not over until they sine die. So at this point, I can tell you things look very positive and they're moving in the right direction, but we don't have a lot of details for you yet. On the federal side, President Biden is set to release his full fiscal 22 budget next Friday, and this comes as the administration continues to actively negotiate with Senate Republicans over the infrastructure package. Chairman Carper has been looking at moving to a markup next week. We do expect that to happen regardless of how those negotiations go, but we did hear that there was going to be a counteroffer from the administration to the Senate Republicans today. So that process seems to be moving as well. In the House, they were looking at moving over to markup next week as well, but that has been pushed out now. There were 2,380 member designated requests submitted to that committee, and staff is still going through those various projects. If they were all done, I think it's almost $15 billion, which is way over the estimated project threshold for that piece of legislation. At the same time, the House Republicans also released their own version of an infrastructure bill. They called it the Starter Act 2.0. It's about $400 billion and provides kind of that baseline funding similar to the FAST Act. It would be actually a 32% increase over the last FAST Act, but it doesn't contain a lot of the components that the administration and the Democrats have been looking for. And it does look like at this point, without some significant negotiation, it's not likely to move forward. We do expect them to continue to move on both of these packages. Both sides have said openly that they want to have something completed by July 4th. And it seems like they're willing to stick to that schedule right now. We continue to remain in contact with our congressional members and are always available to provide any additional information. And with that, I'm happy to conclude my report and take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Katie. Board Member Daniels, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
My apologies, that was from before. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any questions from board members?
Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Katie, what's the situation on the earmark that has been talked about? Is that something that would probably be acceptable to the congressional setting out there in Washington?
Sure. Mr. Chair and Board Member Thompson, there's a lot of conversation about this process right now. It's very new to most of Congress. Only about a third of Congress was there the last time they did any kind of earmark work. So a lot of people are trying to figure out how this process is going to work. There's two different pots right now that are being considered. There's the earmarks, which are going through the appropriations process. And we had heard in the House, those were smaller ticket items, more in the $500 to $1.5 million range. And then there's the member designated projects, which are going through the Transportation Committee, and they are specific to transportation needs. And each member has been allocated between $15 and $20 million for that process. And so many members requested that folks submit to them projects that they would like them to consider. And that's where that 2,380 projects came from. That's the number that were submitted to that House Transportation Committee. And they're actually all available online. And Mr. Chairman and board members, I'd be happy to send you the link to all of those projects so that you can see them. There are quite a few from Arizona, some on our system. Most of them, I would say 80% of them are not on the state system. They are local projects. But they're all listed on the website, full disclosure of what they are and who submitted them. So I'd be happy to send you that information.
If you would, please, I think we could all review that and enjoy it. Any other questions for Katie? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 2, the district engineer's report. For information discussion only, Audra Merrick, North Central District Engineer. Audra, are you with us?
Audra, this is Floyd. Are you still muted if you're started your presentation?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
It's like a commercial. Anyway, good morning, Chairman Stratman, members of the board. My name is Audra Merrick. I'm the North Central District Engineer. And thank you for having me here today to provide a construction update. Next slide. So I'll be talking to you mainly about two items today. I'm going to talk to you about the rollover construction projects. And that's kind of my term. It's really our two-season projects. It's projects we started last season, and they usually go into winter shutdown because of our winter weather up here. And then they come out of winter shutdown and we finish them up. So I'll talk about those rollover projects first, and then our current construction projects, which are the new ones for this year. Next slide. So here are what I term the rollover projects. Again, these are the projects that started last season and are ending this season. We have 4 projects rolling over. Averaging these together, they are about 95% complete, and we only have about $650,000 of the work remaining. The top 2 projects will be finished in July. The bottom 2 projects will be finished in June of this year. The first 3 projects, as you can see, are bridge preservation projects, with the last one being a modernization project. The work remaining on the Townsend-Winona project is just a little bit of mainline tie-in. Meteor City, we're working on finishing up some seating and some striping and some girder painting. And then the Babbitt's Buffalo, we just need to put some friction course down. And then for the US 89 Horseshoe Bend turn lane project, we just have to put some delineation in and some final striping. Next project, or next page, I'm sorry. So here is a list of our 10 new 2021 construction projects. And these are the ones that are just kicking off for the first time this season. The total is estimated at about $98.5 million, and that's the contract amount. 5 of the projects are bridge preservation projects, and those are the projects that are highlighted in green. 2 of the projects are modernization projects. Those are the ones in blue. So we have the US 160 Warrior Drive to milepost 324, which is a lighting project, a roadway lighting project up in Tuba City. And then we have the State Route 87 north of Pine, which is a 10-mile shoulder widening project. We have 2 pavement preservation projects underway. We have the I-17 to Walnut Canyon, which is actually an I-40 project, but it starts at the interchange of the 4017. And then we also have down there on State Route 179, a project that takes us from I-17 to Red Rock Vista. Lastly, in red, we do have the US 89 milepost 471 project. And that's the permanent fix to the roadway washout that we had probably about 2 years ago. Next slide. These are photos of a sample of our new construction projects that we started this season. The top left is the B40 Rio de Flag bridge replacement project, and I'll show you some more slides on that shortly. And then on the lower left, we have that US 160 Warrior Drive to milepost 324 project, and that was the roadway lighting project that I mentioned on the previous slide. In the center, we have the I-15 bridge number 1, which is our CMAR bridge replacement project, and that's up in the northwest corner of the state up on I-15. And then to the right, we have the I-40 West Flagstaff TI project, and that project's just 4 miles east of Flagstaff, and it's a deck rehab project. Next slide. This is a photo of the traffic going over the oops, yep, that one there, thanks. This is a photo of the traffic going over the B40 bridge, which is the Rio de Flag bridge right in front of Flagstaff City Hall, just to get a sense of some of the traffic volumes on that project. Next slide. And then these are photos of the existing Rio de Flag bridge structure. It's a 2-span concrete slab bridge structure. It was actually built in 1934. It's been widened twice since 1934. It goes over the Rio de Flag waterway. And so our project is replacing this bridge with a precast, pre-stressed concrete box beam structure. And then the photo on the right is an existing pier the leaning pier, hence the reason why we need to replace the structure. Next slide. These photos show the accelerated bridge construction methods that are taking place on the Rio de Flag replacement bridge project. The photo on the left is a concrete bridge abutment section, and it was cast off to the side of the site, and then we take a crane and we lift it and we set it in place. The photo on the right shows that section set in place. Each abutment has 4 sections, and each one of those sections is about 50 tons, to give you some idea of the massiveness of them. Our plan is to do the bulk of this bridge work, which is removing the existing bridge and replacing, all under one 7-day closure. Next slide. And I took this photo when I was out on the construction site last week, only because it made me laugh. Yes, those are stairs. They're concrete stairs. And what they do is take you down to the channel and back up, and they do have handrails on them. Apparently that access road gets kind of slippery, especially when there's a little bit of rain. So I just really wanted to share it because, like I said, it made me laugh when I was out there. You don't see stairs like this constructed very often out there on our construction projects. But it does demonstrate the creativity and creativity of the construction team and their commitment to safety, which is important to us all. Next slide. So thank you for your time today and allowing me to present the construction projects. Thanks.
Thank you, Audra. I've been contacted a couple of times by Steve Christensen, who's the supervisor for the County District 1, concerning the 87 project and a couple of other things. Could you have someone reach out and speak to him about that, please?
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions for Audra? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much for your presentation. Quite interesting.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 3, the consent agenda. Does any member have an item they would like to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the motion consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Board Member Knight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second the motion, Member Thompson.
I believe Mr. Board Member Daniels got in front of you, if I'm correct on that. So we have a motion by Mr. Knight, a second by Board Member Daniels, and call for the roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So we'll start with Vice Chair Thompson.
Here, yep. Aye.
Member Knight?
Aye.
Member Searle?
Aye.
Member Daniels?
Aye.
Member Mack?
Aye.
Member Maxwell? Aye. Chairman Stratton?
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move on to the financial report, agenda item number 4, with Christine Ward. Let's see if she's smiling this morning. Christine?
Hey, good morning, board members. Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to start out with just a moment to address Mr. Searle's questions earlier, and I think it will help the board overall in understanding where we are in the revenue projections. I'm sorry? Okay.
Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Searle, you asked about the revenue projections and what projections we were running off at this time, and were we running off of those original COVID projections? And no, we were not. We did a subsequent revenue projection revision, if you'll recall, with our economist panel, what we call the RAP panel, and those revenue estimates were completed in August. So we've had 7 months working on those projections, off of those projections. However, we modified when we found that the revenues were coming in what appears sustainably past those projections in August. We made modifications to the program and added $80 million to the program in February, and this board approved applying those additional funds to increase costs associated with I-17, as well as you approved bringing a project back into the program that had previously been reduced, removed from the program due to funding shortfalls. And that was, I believe, the US 93 project. So what we are doing is in our upcoming, our next period to do a full reforecast starts in August, and that is when we'll do a full reforecast with the economists and the transportation experts that we gather to complete those. However, in between those times, we are looking at, as displayed by my reports every month, we look at the revenues every month, and when we see that we've got sustainable, where we believe we have sustainable revenues, just like we did in February, we will add dollars and back to the program and make recommendations to this board. And you will have that same opportunity to select the projects that are put back into put into the program. I hope that helps, sir. So if with that, I'll proceed with my my financial, I would say normal financial report, but April is very unusual. So first of all, welcome Board Member Maxwell and Board Member Meck. You, like Board Member Searle and Daniels that came in 2020, are joining the board at a very unique time, and April is a particularly unique month. April revenues were so unusual that we literally were worried that that we had significant data issues. So this morning's presentation will be just a bit longer because I want to show you the research and what we've found as we have dug into the numbers. But it's all for a good ending to the story. So if we could go to the first slide, please, Rep. Thank you. So we are now 1 year past the start of COVID, the data available with the start of COVID, and April represents our first year-over-year comparison of a portion of the first month of COVID, which was March of 2020. And with that, I will welcome you to the strongest month in HERF history. April revenues were 33% above April 2020. The strength in the revenues was across all of the sources that flow into HERF, as you can see depicted on this slide: gas tax, diesel tax, vehicle license tax, registration. Across the board, we had an incredibly strong month, and the result is that it has thrown us 6.3% above forecast as depicted in the chart. If you'll go to the next slide. So what this shows you is HERF monthly revenue since 1988. Now, as you would expect, it shows steady growth. Of course, when we hit the Great Recession, we see those dip in revenues. But we collected in April 159 million in revenues. Our estimates were 131.6, a difference of about $27 million, or 20.7% above forecast. Year to date, we are 80 million above estimates. And what that means, if you'll, as you all know, this is HERF revenues, and but the program is built off of state highway fund revenues that are a beneficiary of HERF. So HERF gets distributed to the cities, towns, the counties, and it gets distributed to the state highway fund. the impact of being over forecast like this, the impact to the state highway fund, how the state highway fund will benefit, is to the tune of $29.6 million. If you'll go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, it's across all categories. You can see here on this slide, you'll see by the little numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, the hierarchy of where the revenues came in higher, just remarkably higher. So in vehicle license tax, we were 32% over last year, and we were 22% over forecast. For registration, 2%, number 2, we were 75, almost 76% over last year. Used fuel, aka also known as diesel, was 29, almost 30% over last year. And then you see gas tax being 11% over last year. In total, compared to last year, we were 33%, as I mentioned earlier, over last April. So with this, we dug in a little deeper because when we saw these numbers, they were startling, and we were concerned, as I mentioned, that we had maybe systems or data issues. So let's go into the next slide if we could, please, Brett. So vehicle license tax revenues is primarily made up of 2 components. It's made up of when each of you, assuming you own a vehicle, renew your registration and get your new tags, and that typically most people renew annually. The second, and at that time, when you're renewing your registration, you're paying your VLT, and that is the largest component of VLT revenues. The second component of VLT revenues is associated with people going out and purchasing new vehicles. When we dug into the numbers, unfortunately, we do not have precise numbers that tell us the number of new vehicle sales at this time. We are working on that report and getting that data. But one interesting thing we found when we did dig into the data is that we had a tremendous increase, 145% increase in payments, in late payments, people making late payments. So we typically always have, folks that are making late payments, but in this case, we saw 145% increase. If you'll go to that next slide, Rhett. So this shows you how we had that surge in the March and April timeframe this year. So what happens is when people are making late payments, it also means that they are making their normal VLT payments along with that late registration. And we just saw a tremendous spike in these last couple of months. So as best we can discern, people are catching up